You practice, I make progress. It's the postman. You're listening to me on the 3 Count Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another great edition of the 3 Count Podcast. Now entering the ring. I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, and as always, the Napster is here with me. So give it up for the one, the sleepy one, the one who always seems to just wake up just in time to be on the show, JJ.
First off, I'd like to thank the sidewalks for keeping me off the street. Dangerous times out here. There's a revolutionary war going on, so make sure you're locked and loaded. Chitty chitty bang, murder everything. That's all for me.
And as per usual, our special correspondent, you guys know him as the supervillain. Give it up for Damien Fatal.
What's going on, people?
So, as always, this is Now Enter the Ring, which means that we have a special guest. But, on top of that, now, reffing this contest, you will know him from the local area, whether he's in Dayton or he's in Louisville. Give it up for Sean Patrick O'Brien.
Yo, what's up, guys? Appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh man, we are glad that we were able to make this happen. I know, like we've been, we tried to get this actually done last week, but we had some technical difficulties with our equipment, so we had to push this back. And I'm glad that you were able to come on and join us for it, man.
Same, man. Yeah, it's all good. Stuff happens, but glad we were able to make it happen.
Exactly. So we were talking about this before. We're going to talk about it again, right? So we have 3 or 4 questions for you, man, just from each one of us. And then we had the 10 count questions. So conversations go as long as you would like them to go. So my very first question for you is, who is Sean Patrick O'Brien?
Well, I am a father, first and foremost. Shout out to my beautiful baby girl, Jennifer Jean. I also am an artist. Like I was alluding to earlier, I'm a classically trained singer. I did music for a few years. Was in the hip hop scene here, in Louisville, doing my thing. And then I'm also a professional wrestling referee. Whatever that entails, however you want to take that, man. I love my job as a ref, and I want to do it to the best of my ability. So, yeah, man, that's me, really. I used to, on Facebook, I used to have, the little subtitle, and it would say, Daddy, Artist, Referee, and then Showstopper. But, I kind of backed off the showstopper just because I'm a ref. I'm supposed to be somewhat invisible, even though I like to do my job to the best of my ability. But yeah, that's Sean, man. That's me in a gist.
So what I got out of this was father, artist, referee, and a sexy boy. Sexy boy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's been your favorite thing about being a ref?
Honestly, man, my favorite thing about being a referee is that I get to somewhat control the psychology during a match, because a good referee is able to stay out of the way, but also is able to make sure that things run smoothly and the match goes like it needs to go. Is able to communicate between everybody in the ring. And then also, too, I take a lot of pride in making sure that we all get out of the ring safe and we all get in there the same way we got out, So, and that's real big to me as far as keeping people safe. I've been in too many matches where I've had to stop the match because people got hurt. And that's, in a gist, that's my favorite part definitely my favorite part is being able to control the psychology in a match. Because a good referee, a bad referee can mess up a really good match. And it's actually, I had this debate with Nick Gage one time, because he tried to tell me and like 2 other referees that it's easy as hell to be a ref. He was like, it's easy, man. Anybody could ref, blah blah. This is Nick Gage. We're having a debate, and I'm like, Nick, come on, man. Like, you're full of crap, dude. I was like, nah, look, it's easy to be a bad referee, because that's a fact. It's definitely easy to be a bad ref. You don't have to do much, especially because if you watch certain shows, you could tell that somebody just threw a ref shirt at somebody and was like, hey, we need a ref. Count 3. That's all you need to do. But it's pretty difficult to be a good referee. So, yeah, I'd say probably the psychology and then also keeping everybody safe. That's my favorite things about being a ref.
You're not wrong about that, because I do know of a certain person who's on this show as the host currently who got thrown a referee shirt and told to ref Grimm's toy show. And I was definitely like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I will do my best.
Well, also, to your point, I've only had one wrestling match in my entire career, and I'll never have another one. Actually, it was funny because, one of my monikers is referee man bun, and after post-match, I got my man bun cut off in the ring, and it was pretty funny. But they jumped me with a chair, beat me up, and grabbed my hair and cut it off or whatever. It was the heels, man, and terrible bad guys. But anyway, the referee for that match was Too Tough Tony, of ICP fame and all that. And he, Too Tough Tony, man, he was wore out after the match was over with. And we get to the back, and he was like, man, that was a lot harder work than I thought it was going to be. So he actually, he didn't get down to count like 2 different pins. He was out of position, and it wasn't because we got him out of position. It was because he was like, oh, crap, and got spun around. And it was too funny, man. He sweat his ass off. I'm trying not to cuss too much, but he definitely sweat a lot during that match, and it was hilarious. So, and that was actually one of the points that I brought up to Nick Gage, is I was like, yo, man, Too Tough Tony refed his first match when I was wrestling, and he told me it was hard as hell. So I'm just letting you know. Gage, you think you can ref? Could you imagine Nick Gage in a referee shirt? No. But anyway.
So I guess my last question for you would be, what was your training like to become a ref?
Well, I to be completely honest, man, I really didn't have much formal training. My training was I joined up with a Fed here in the area. They're no longer running anymore. And at the time, it felt like we were doing some stuff because we were on TV and we were opposite, whatever running time OVW was and stuff. So it felt like we were doing some cool stuff back then. But at the same time, like the guys that we were using and different stuff like that, none of them are wrestling to this day anymore. So you know what I mean? But that was the company that I had actually broke in through. My cousin-in-law, he's the guy that's married to my cousin. He is a former wrestler, and he actually, more or less brought me in, and I was just a fan at first and enjoyed it. Would yell at the heels and cheer for the good guys and whatever. And I would always end up hanging out afterwards and helping them tear down and different stuff, not knowing that that's how you pay your dues and different stuff. I was really just doing it just to hang out with some wrestlers and be backstage at a wrestling show, and it was kind of cool. And then lo and behold, I think that they were short on referees or something, and they were having a battle royal, and so somebody threw me a ref shirt, and I was like, all right, let's go. And so I did that, and that led to me bugging the crap out of Corey and being like, hey, man, when can I get in the ring and do this myself? Like, I'd like to ref a match. And finally, he gave me a chance, and that was my training. Was I just, over time progressed. That was the only company that I'd worked for about 2 years, maybe about a year and a half, close to 2 years. And then once they closed down, I went back to doing my music, took it more seriously. And then by the time that there was some show that had happened, it was something random, and Corey hadn't wrestled in forever, but he was going to be on this show. It was a benefit show or something. I'm just like, hey, I'll ride with you. What the hell? And that literally snowball affected into me meeting. That's where I met Max Recon. who is my big brother referee. That's one of my mentors. He's AJ Kissinger now because he's gets signed off. But that was where I met him at, and I met a few others that gave me some really great advice. And then that was what led me to going to IWA and all that good stuff. A few people knew me when I got back into the game, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I remember you from UWA back in the day." And so that was really just how it happened. But literally, it was just a right place, right time. To be completely honest with you, man, that was. And then my formal training was, being in the ring and messing up, and then having people be like, "Hey, this is where you messed up. Fix it," whatever. And so to where once I took that little break and then came back, it was like everything just came back to me. And, luckily I came back strong, and I was working with IWA Mid-South, which is, a storied promotion in itself. A lot of guys in WWE right now came from IWA Mid-South and, Ian Rotten's tutelage. And so, working with those guys, man, I've learned so much. Working with guys like, Aaron Williams and Larry D and and all these guys on a regular basis, man. I've learned so much just doing that. And so really I guess my training was just being in the ring and on the job training. However, I do encourage people to get formal training because it definitely would have helped me out in the long run. I wouldn't have had to take as much time because, dude, I watched stuff back, even old stuff that I did in IWA Mid-South, and I'm just like, I am not the same referee that I was back then. You know what I mean? So just from, progression and being in the ring. So for a referee, for my position, the best training is on-the-job training, I feel like. But at the same time, I definitely encourage some kind of formal training. So, and I know some schools if you need to,
Bet.
So.
All right. Well, I'm going to let Josh ask the next set of questions for you.
Awesome.
Alrighty. I have some technical difficulties on my end. Who are your Mount Rushmore of referees in the wrestling business?
Oh man, that's easy. Mike Chioda. This one is not as popular, but I would definitely have to say Rick Knox. I'm a huge fan of Rick Knox. And then I would have to put Tommy Young on there. I'd probably say Tommy Young. So just because Tommy Young is the GOAT, that's, the originator, man. That's who everybody coming up in the business, that's who we were told, like, hey, you need to watch Tommy Young. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'd say that's probably, is it 4 on the Mount Rushmore? Yeah, 4 on the
Yes, 4, yes.
Yeah. So Chioda, Charles Robinson, Rick Knox, and Tommy Young.
All right. And now I'm segueing to my next question for you. What would be the best advice you can give to up-and-coming referees in the industry?
Best advice that I would give to any ref is stay out of the way, but also make sure, enforce your authority. But like I was saying, man, formal training will, help you with all of that. And that's why I definitely encourage getting some kind of formal training or having like a mentor to give you, pointers and different stuff like that. Because me having a guy like Max Recon was definitely helpful because I was able to send him matches anytime and he can be like, oh, well, this is what you need to do to get it better. So, but yeah, I'd say the best advice is to stay out of the way, but make sure you still do your job. You know what I mean? Oh, and definitely, this goes for anybody in pro wrestling. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
We get that one all the time.
It's a popular quote, man, and I definitely agree with it because if you just keep your ears open, man, you'll hear some crazy stuff, whether it be crazy stories of back in the day. I've been in locker rooms with Tracy Smothers, and ain't nothing like being in a locker room with Tracy Smothers with like 8 guys sitting around, and he's telling stories about punking out Buff Bagwell. You know what I mean? Like, it's incredible. Tracy's the man. But yeah, man, definitely keep your ears open.
And my last question for you would be, I'm pretty sure you refed a bunch of good matches, but
Mm-hmm.
what was possibly one of the worst matches you've ever refed?
Oh man. One of the worst matches I've ever refed. I couldn't even think of anything from my old UWA days because I'm sure there was probably some matches in those days that was pretty terrible. Man, you know what? One of the matches that really sticks out in my head that was surprising because it should have been a lot better was Soraya Knight versus Maria Manic, and that was at Black Craft Wrestling. It was on the show that happened WrestleMania weekend where a guy got crucified, and pretty much the show that shut them down. They and you can actually go on Botchamania. Botchamania put that entire show on there. They put clips from that entire show on that, and yeah, and that Maria Ryan Knight match, their time got cut like really, really badly, and so Soraya had basically called this. Man, it was like she had me ring the bell before Maria Manic even got into the ring. So, okay, whatever, cool. I rang the bell while they were on the outside, and they were fighting on the outside. And then, even though it was no DQ, no count out, was the rules, Soraya Knight wanted me to count them out. It's like, okay, what? Like, make it make sense, please. So that was probably one of the most awkward matches because I didn't really know how I was supposed to be reacting, considering there's no rules and all that, and just different stuff. So yeah, that was a weird one. There was also a match at one of the smaller feds around here that I actually still work for that company, but I had a moment where I told myself I need to be better about saying no because I ref this match. It was absolute trash. I don't even remember who was in it, but I know it was friends of mine that were in it. Guys that live in this area. The match was trash, and then the main event was even worse. And I was literally watching this main event like, damn, man, like, why am I here? Like, what am I? I know I'm better than this. Like, and it wasn't a good feeling. But that was when I kind of had a epiphany. Like, man, I need to be better about saying no. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's probably a couple of the worst matches I've ever ref. Besides somebody getting hurt and me having to call it early, because that's just an unfortunate accident. Like for instance, the first time I ever refereed Marco Stunt, we were 2 minutes in the match. He did some weird thing off the top of a guy and ended up coming down on his arm and broke his arm, and it was a bad break. And I was like, I ran over to Marco and I'm like, yo, bro, you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm okay. And I was like, you want to keep going? And he was like, yeah, I'm cool. Well, then he turned and I saw how bent out of shape his arm was. And I said, oh, no, you're not. And I threw the X and somebody ran over and, grabbed him, literally grabbed him like a baby because, it's Marco Stunt. And carried him out to a car. And I think they ran him straight to the hospital. So, but yeah, and that was probably 2 minutes into the match or so. But I can't count something like that because the match was going to be incredible. I know what they had called, so I knew it was going to be a really good match. Just accidents happen sometimes. So.
All right, so we'll give it up to Damien next.
Awesome, man.
All right, to piggyback off of JJ, since you talked about the worst, what's the best match that you think, in your opinion, you've refed, like your favorite?
Oh man. So my favorite match that I always tell people off top, I refereed Mance Warner against Matt Riddle, and yeah, man, that match was, man, you could actually watch that on IWTV. Cheap plug for those guys. But it was at IWA Mid South. And like it was weird just because I was a big MMA fan. My senior year of high school, around 2007, 2008, when UFC started to get real popular, The Ultimate Fighter was on and all that stuff. And so I knew who Matt Riddle was before he got into wrestling, and I knew his whole backstory and all that. And I was just like, man, that'd be really cool if I got a chance to work with him. I didn't think it was possible, because I knew he was on the fast track to WWE as soon as he signed, or as soon as he, said he was going to do pro wrestling. I knew, he was destined for great things. And, IWA Mid-South, like, IWA Mid-South is IWA Mid-South, but at the same time, it's like, Matt Riddle ain't coming here, you know what I'm saying? Like, and he did. Ian got him booked, man, and Ian actually booked him twice. And that Matt Riddle, Mance Warner, leading up to it, Ian was like threatening. Well, Mance Warner was champion at the time, and Ian, storyline was threatening to fire Mance if he lost the title to a shoot fighter. He was like, he's a real fighter. Like, he will really hurt you, Mance. And, and he was doubting Mance really big. Even tried to make him lose the title at one point, like a week or two before the match, just so that the title wouldn't get taken off of him. And then, of course, when Mance won the match, huge pop from the crowd. Ian apologized to him and was like, I'm sorry I doubted you. You're the heart of IWA. It was just a really cool, backstory, really cool moment and all that stuff. So, and that's one of my favorite things about wrestling, period, is just the moments. So that's probably my gut favorite match. Another match that I refereed that is definitely one of my favorites is between two guys who are known, but they're not as known as those other two. The Hood Ninja Isaiah against Shane Mercer. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with Shane Mercer or not, but Shane Mercer is the guy that picked up the bleachers and, crazy dude. Hood Ninja Isaiah, he's an old IWA original. And actually, guys like AR Fox and different guys like that, I've literally been in conversations where they talk about how much they look up to Isaiah. So Isaiah's a legend. He's been around. But they had a no-rope barbed wire match, and neither of those guys are typical deathmatch guys. But they had a no-rope barbed wire match where they went like a good 45 minutes, had all kinds of crazy shenanigans. The finish was Isaiah did a swanton off the top of a ladder with a flaming chair in his hands. It was wild, man. Yeah, it was such a good match. But man, it was such a good match. At one point, Isaiah hit the Undertaker tope over the top barbed wire rope onto Shane on the outside. Like, just crazy stuff in that match, man. That's definitely one of my favorites, only because they went ham. But those two guys are two of my favorite people in the business. Isaiah's like my big brother. Me and him have had countless conversations on my couch, watched plenty of wrestling. Like, he's one of my good friends. Shane Mercer is one of my writing buddies. He's actually gotten me a couple different bookings. So like both those guys I'm really close to. So it means a lot to me on many different levels. But I'd say that's probably my two favorite like matches that I could think of on the top of my head. But like some of my favorite people, like I've worked with Pentagon. I've worked with all kind of like people that I never ever thought I would. D'Lo Brown. Man, when I refereed Orange Cassidy against Eric Stevens, like I never thought I was going to get to ref an Orange Cassidy match because he had already got signed by the time that I ended up working this match, and just to be able to knock that off the bucket list because I didn't know the dynamic of working with the Orange Cassidy match. But being able to knock that off the bucket list and and being able to work with him was so cool because his style is so different. And so yeah, man, I've reffed some pretty awesome matches. It's hard to definitely pinpoint a favorite, but those two are definitely probably my favorites for different meanings. So.
All right. What was the first wrestling match you ever saw?
You said what's the first wrestling match I ever saw?
That like caught your attention.
Oh man,
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh man, yeah. It was young, and I barely remember, 2 weeks ago. So uh, it was definitely something like WCW or WWF, um, and I want to say it was before the Monday Night Wars. That was about when I started watching. Um, but man, I couldn't even tell you the first match that I actually saw. Uh, let's see, I'm trying to think. But I know the first match that actually like grasped me and was like, made me feel some type of way, was I'd probably have to say Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania. So I'm kind of young, you know what I mean? So that was, my sophomore year of high school, maybe freshman year of high school or so. So I was starting to get a little older, and then I was starting to understand what wrestling was, um, and all that stuff. And I remember watching that full match, and I literally can remember the feeling that I felt and everything, especially whenever Shawn Michaels, right before he was about to super kick, Rick, and he said, "I'm sorry, I love you," and like, oh man, that match is everything. So yeah, I would probably put that as the first match that really meant something to me, but I couldn't even tell you the first match that I watched, bro. I can tell you this, the first moment that I remember in wrestling, that really kind of like messed me up. Not messed me up, but I was just like, holy crap, this is real. Was the whole NWO, beating up everybody in the, outside and all that, and they threw Rey Mysterio against the trailer, and then fire trucks and ambulance pull up and all that, which later finding out that was through documentaries and stuff, that was because neighbors in the area legit thought that was a real gang war, and they called the police and everything, and you know what I mean, like, but I remember being young and just being glued to the TV while that was going on, because I was like, this is wild. And then they came back after commercial, and they was surveying the damage and everything, and I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. So, but I was young when that happened. So,
All right, and my last question is, in your opinion, how important is a referee to a wrestling match?
very important. For all the reasons that I was telling Cliff earlier, as far as like my favorite a good referee. I think a good referee is very. Just make sure you have a good referee, and if you need one, book me. So.
All right, man. Well, that wraps up like the real questions part coming up. So now we have the 10 count questions. Don't think too much, man.
Let's do
First
it.
thought that comes to your mind. So let's put on the imaginary timer. Bing! There it is. You see it right there?
Yep.
All right. Here we go. Starting with question 10. Trish or Lita?
Lita.
Okay. SmackDown or Raw?
Absolutely, yeah, Lita. I'm gonna go Raw, just because that's the flagship show. You know what I mean? SmackDown at times and during periods, but Raw is where it's at.
Too hot or too cold?
Too hot, because I can take off layers and get a good sweat workout. So.
Heel or face?
I'd probably say heel, only because I know me as a referee. I love interacting with the heels. So,
Early bird or night owl?
man, I'm a night owl, and that sucks because I work at 6 o'clock in the morning. But I'm definitely a night owl, man. I sleep maybe 3 to 4 hours a night. So.
I hear that. Favorite color?
Favorite color is green, because I am Irish. And also, a lot of my favorite things are green. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Favorite candy?
Oh man, dang. I would probably have to go with Starburst, followed closely by a 100 gram bar.
Okay.
I don't know what it is about a 100 gram bar, man, but they are so delicious.
Last time you laughed out loud?
Oh man, I laugh all the time. I especially because I'm a big comedy fan. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love Joe Rogan's podcast. Actually, earlier while I was at work, I was listening to Joe Rogan and Kevin Hart, and that was a great episode, man. They was telling some really cool stories. So I guess that's technically the last time, or while I'm chatting it up with you guys, maybe. But
All right, it is Wednesday, so we have to ask: the Great American Bash or Fighter Fest?
oh, Fighter Fest, man. I'm pretty burned out by WWE at the moment. I was trying to watch the no audience stuff, whether it be AEW or WWE, that was hard for me to watch because I missed it so much. Um, but a lot of my friends are signed by AEW, so I've been trying to keep track of what they've been doing, and it's just a better show, in my opinion. But so definitely Fighter Fest by far.
And last but not least, I know you said you were trying to watch it a little bit. Favorite curse word?
Favorite curse word is probably fuck.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
it's probably
Let's
yeah,
go.
yeah. It's very multi-dimensional. It's very useful in many different contexts.
If
and
anybody hasn't seen, man, they need to go watch the history of the F word on YouTube. By far, one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life.
I'm gonna look that up. It sounds interesting.
They legit tell you about different ways you can use that word. I
Okay.
love. They're like one of the ways is like inquisitively. What the fuck? Like it's like you could put. He's like
Exactly.
they said you could use that word for literally every word in a sentence.
Yeah.
Fuck fucking fuckers. Yeah,
Yeah.
we legitimately the F word is the best.
Yeah. I agree, man. Yeah. And also too, and in some circles, depending on how you ask or who you ask, it could be the harshest. You know what I mean?
It can
Uh,
be. It can be.
and so besides maybe the B word, I don't like to use that too much, but yeah.
All right, but then other than that, man, why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you, plug in all your social medias, anything else that you really want to throw out there?
Awesome. So my social media is pretty easy. On Twitter and Instagram, it's official SPO 502. And then my Facebook is Sean Patrick O'Brien. I'm kind of close to the limit on my friends, but I'll make room for you if you want to have me. Also, definitely got to plug what I got coming up, just in case I don't know if it's gonna drop, how soon it is, but I've got AWR this coming weekend on July 5th. It's Asylum Wrestling. They are in Indianapolis. They have a show. Crap, I can't remember where it's at the top of my head. Hold on, I got it pulled up. That is at the Emerson Theater in Indianapolis. And then the following weekend, that's on the 5th, this weekend, coming weekend. The following weekend, July 11th, I'm actually working a benefit show for the Salem Animal Shelter. It's called Pawcade. And that's going to be a blast. The main event on that show is actually Effie versus Calvin Tankman, who just got signed by MLW. So that's going to be a really, really fun show, man. The guy who is throwing it is there's actually a wrestling journalist, website down here. It's called MidwestWrestlingTerritory.com. My buddy Chad French. He's the one putting that show on. And that's on July 11th. It's going to be at the Washington County Fairgrounds, I believe, in Salem, Indiana. And it goes to a good cause. It goes to the animal shelter. And I think he's going to have Dog groomers there. So if you want to bring your dogs out, if anybody hears this in the area and wants to come out, they're doing like nail clippings and stuff for your dogs and different stuff. So raffles and different stuff like that. So it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. Yeah, I'm just glad to be back in the ring because man, did I miss wrestling so much. Like I miss it so much that I actually quit watching it for about. I was telling you guys this earlier. I quit watching it for about a month and a half, and just because it was making me miss it so much, and I had to be in the ring. And I was able to catch stuff like the Jeffrey Epstein and documentary and Tiger King and and Ozark. I finished that. It's a great show if anybody wants to check that out. But yeah, I watched a lot of other stuff besides wrestling for the last couple months, and then I was able to get in the ring this past weekend, the weekend before. I had 2 shows back to back, and literally all this week, it's all I've been watching is just wrestling. So it's nice to be back in the ring, man. But yeah, if you want to follow me and see what I'm doing, see where I'm going to be at, I'm all over, man. I work for, damn near 10, 15 different companies. Just follow me on Twitter and Instagram, official SPO502.
Right on, right on. So with that being said, that's how we're going to wrap this up. As for me, I am Clifford Red Dog Miller. You know the Napster, JJ, the supervillain, Damien, and as always, our special guest. Thank you for being on the show, Sean Patrick O'Brien. We are excited about having you on. Thank you again. And
appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So, like always, tune into this show so you can either be there or be somewhere else.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is JJ, 1/4 of the 3 Count Podcast. Make sure that you follow us on all the social medias. Make sure you subscribe on all podcasting platforms. And make sure you share with all of your friends. JJ out.